Hi everybody, LG here, and welcome to r/Am I the A-hole? A short trigger warning before we start with this video. This one includes an addict parent. If that is something you are sensitive to, you might want to skip the story, but I have to say there is an update and a proper resolution. Now let's get started. This one's from user Onslaught at the Gates. Am I the a-hole for calling police on X? My ex, 35, had custody of our daughter, 9, until I discovered that my ex was neglecting my daughter by using drugs and living in horrific conditions. I won custody of my daughter when she was 7. Her mother was a heavy meth user for a long time, I came to find out. She hid it from nearly everyone, and of the time I suspected it, I didn't have proof until I came across video evidence of it on my daughter's tablet. During our custody battle, my ex got clean. I was very happy about this, as I wanted my daughter to have her mother in her life. My ex got a job making good money, moved away from her abusive meth head dealer boyfriend, and was finally trying to make something of herself. Well, the last few months, my ex was finally allowed unsupervised visits. Every visit, there was a ton of drama. She was late picking up our daughter, 16 hours late once. She slept for 24 hours straight, leaving our daughter to fend for herself for food. Our daughter had to call her grandma to pick her up because she couldn't wake up mommy. She lost her job due to being sick. She constantly has an excuse for why she is late or unavailable. She once had a friend bring my daughter back in a car that had a breathalyzer in it to keep it running. I discovered this guy had 5 warrants out for his arrest due to meth. The last visit, however, is where I think I might have been the a-hole. My ex was 4 hours late picking up our daughter yet again, and then had a 2-hour drive back to where she lives. I checked my daughter's phone GPS to see if she had made it to her mother's safely, only to discover they weren't even halfway there yet. Her mother stopped at a random gas station off the interstate for 2 hours and left our daughter alone in the car. I couldn't believe it when I talked to my daughter on the phone, so of course I called the police to do a welfare check. Before the police could arrive, I checked with my daughter again to see if her mother had returned. She had. I relayed this information to dispatch. They still chased her down. All I was told is that my daughter was okay. After my daughter returned from visitation, she told my wife about the incident. This is where I feel terrible. Daughter said the police put her in the back of the squad car as her mother and car were searched. She was terrified. That was never my intention. I just wanted to make sure she was safe because I was 99% sure there was some sort of drug deal use going down, especially with recent behavior. Her lawyer even withdrew from counsel this week after a drug test was ordered. My suspicions are through the roof. So, am I the a-hole? And the community has decided that OP is not the a-hole. So now let's go take a look at the top comments to understand why. Neutraligon says, not the a-hole. While your daughter may have been scared, her safety comes first. Police oftentimes have events where they do meet and greet with people, where they also get to see a police car and all that. Maybe see if you can replace what she experienced with police with a more positive experience. OP responds, this is an excellent idea. I hope we can do something like this once COVID is under control. Queen Tex 6 says, not the a-hole. Your daughter may have been frightened, but who knows what could have been going on, or even what may have happened if there wasn't a wellness check. I think your daughter would be more traumatized by potentially being the only one there if her mother ODs, or having to hang out with a bunch of drug dealers or people that are actively using meth. These are very dangerous situations for a child to be around. I hope that you can get full custody soon and have supervised visitation when your ex is clean again. I'm sure you have already done this, but maybe sitting down with your daughter and talking to her about this situation would help. I know that when I was a child, I had similar experiences, but with my dad. The late pickups, the drug use, and the police. And what always hurt and confused me the most was feeling unloved. I was too young to really understand what was going on, and it scared me. This might be the case for her too. She needs some extra support right now. OP responds, thank you for your thoughtful comments. I have never dealt with anything like this, as my wife and myself are straight-laced. However, I am so lucky I do not have to be both parents, as my wife is the best stepmom and my daughter absolutely adores her. I guess that makes me even more bitter towards my wife for not even doing the bare minimum when my wife, who isn't even blood, fills the mother role when she clearly doesn't have to. I have done everything I can to support my daughter, yet trying to take away her mother is a very double-edged sword. Black Widow 7D says, not the a-hole. It sounds exactly like a drug deal was going down, and since there is no field sobriety test for meth, they probably couldn't do anything to prove there was drug use. But what else could mother have been doing for 2 hours at a random gas station? Totally agreed, OP, you are not the a-hole. I understand you might feel bad because your daughter was scared about the situation, but it could have been even worse if you hadn't. And to this particular point where you say that you're taking her mother away from her, no you're not. She did that herself. She took herself out of the picture by being an addict. And if your wife has taken the mother role and is giving your daughter a good example of an adult, then that's great. So hopefully, and for your daughter's sake, her mother's gonna clean herself up and do right by her daughter. Either way, you are not the a-hole, OP. Now, OP has given us an update, and like I said, whenever there's an update available, I am going to prioritize it. So let's continue with the update now. It's been since December when the initial drug test was ordered for my ex thanks to the events of several visitations and the situations she placed my daughter in, who is 10 now. The second court date, when my ex failed to show or present a drug test, the court ordered my ex's visitation rights to be suspended until she could provide a negative hair follicle. By the third court date, the judge decided to place a no contact order on my ex, which was a huge relief. My ex has failed to show to the other 5 court hearings after, so it was decided her failure to take a drug test will now be considered a presumptive positive. In the meantime, my lawyer filed a motion for 100% legal custody, already had physical, of my daughter and give my wife power of attorney over my daughter. This was just granted yesterday, especially when an expert witness, my own daughter, testifying against her mother, which I honestly never thought she would do, and my own testimony. My daughter's mother has been missing in action since the beginning of December. The last I heard from my ex-mother-in-law, she couldn't even afford to have her electricity turned on. I'm furious her mother has placed so much stress on our daughter. That she has hurt her so thoroughly that my kid said today, off the cuff, that she will never forgive her mother. My wife and I didn't even know how to reply to that, so we just nodded in understanding because she is allowed her feelings. I no longer feel like an a-hole. I did at first because of how upset my daughter was. I felt it was entirely my fault. I hated seeing her so upset. I know everything I've done is to protect her from the disaster that is her mother. And I am extremely disappointed that her mother has just decided to not fight for her kid anymore. Just give up and not even show to court. I have a feeling I won't be hearing anything from her mother. Thank you for all your replies to the previous post. I know many people were pushing for court, which I already had planned, but the court moves slowly. Now you know the outcome. Well, OP, I'm bittersweet happy for you and your daughter because you don't have to deal with that crappy parent anymore. But like you said, I'm sad because she gave up on her kid. She just didn't find it in her to fight in order to keep seeing her kid or to be a part of her kid's life, which is so sad. However, there's still hope that someday she'll figure things out, get herself clean, try to make amends. But the thing that your daughter said about never being able to forgive her is going to be the biggest challenge your ex-wife faces if she does decide to get clean. But the important thing for now is that your daughter is in a safe environment with you and your wife. So that's a huge positive in my book. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the next post. This one's from user EffectiveBuffalo43. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom she can't see her grandson unless she changes her attitude? Hello Reddit. My husband, 33, and I, 31, are pregnant with our first child after trying for a year now. We found out we're having a baby boy and we're so thrilled. We decided that we're going to do a small gender reveal party. My mom always wanted a granddaughter. She even wore all pink to the gender reveal. When the blue confetti came out, everyone cheered except for my mom. She decided to leave and go home, so I didn't see her the whole rest of the party. After the party, I decided to get on social media, and the first thing that popped up was a post from my mom saying, "Worst day ever." When someone asked what was going on, she replied, "My daughter is having a boy when I wanted it to be a girl, but I guess it's okay." I called my mom and told her that unless she changes her attitude, then she can't see her grandson. And she just screamed at me, but I kept it firm. My husband and in-laws agree with me, but other relatives called me an a-hole. So, am I the a-hole? And I'm assuming that it's to no one's surprise that OP was voted not the a-hole. So now let's take a look at the top comments to see what they have to say about OP's mom. Northern Lit Up says, "Not the a-hole. Imagine a grown-up acting like a petulant child who didn't get their own way. I'm sure she'll come around, but be on guard that she doesn't eventually show favoritism to any future granddaughters. You may need to continue to protect your son from this woman." Unidentified 10 says, "Not the a-hole. Your child doesn't need a grandparent treating them like crap because they're not the gender she wanted them to be. You don't need to support her immature and disgusting reaction." Duke with an egg says, "Not the a-hole. Any judgment about gender reveal parties aside, your child's gender is not about her. It's not even about you either. Technically speaking, you didn't choose to have a boy. She's practically shaming you for getting pregnant with a child of the wrong gender." Yeah, OP, this one's a no-brainer, and you are absolutely not the a-hole. Like that last commenter said, any judgment about gender reveal parties aside, you're not the a-hole, and your mom is a huge a-hole on this one. Poor kid, man, having that kind of a grandma. I would definitely keep an eye on her attitude, and if you do have a girl in the future or something like that, or one of your siblings, if you have any, has a girl, I would keep an eye out for favoritism as well. So, what do you guys think about Granny? Let me know in the comment section, and let's move on to the next post. This one's from user 420BA Girl. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my husband's meal at the restaurant? Me, female 30, and my husband, male 32, have been married for 4 months. He likes to be independent in everything, especially when it comes to money. He's bad with money, meaning he never plans for tomorrow and enjoys buying new things every day. I approached him with the idea of having a joint account, and he said okay. But sadly, he took it as in his salary was doubled up and kept purchasing stuff that are expensive without even running it through me. It was just like, grab money and go spend it. Not okay, because we have commitments. I talked to him. His response is that since his money is in that account, meaning he doesn't have to tell me about where he spends it because technically it's his money. He admitted joint account was a bad idea and unnecessary. In his words, am I crazy to think that everyone should just be able to have their own money to spend regardless of whether they were married or not? We decided that each of us have our own salary but both equally pay for everything. He agreed as long as he could buy whatever he wanted with his own money. Last night, he suggested we go eat at a restaurant. I assumed each of us pay for our own meals. We arrived and he ordered more dishes than me and 2 types of desserts. When it was time for paying, I asked the waitress for separate bills, and my husband looked confused when he heard this. He said, "You're not going to pay for my meal too?" I told him it's his decision that each of us pay for everything individually. Told him this is what separate finances mean. He got upset saying he spent all the money he had before coming to the restaurant and didn't think I'd actually decline to pay. So it's fair that I pay for dinner? After he argued and threw a fit, I just paid for my meal and was about to leave when he called me selfish and mean. He came home 2 hours later telling me his buddy came and paid for his meal no problem. He said I shouldn't have declined to pay for his meal and was being mean to him. I told him to not take his misplaced anger out on me, but he still argued with me about what I did and how unacceptable it was. After that, I took some time to calm down. We had a talk this morning, and when I suggested therapy, first thing he said, "Okay, but who's paying?" Then reminded me of what I did and how unacceptable it was. He keeps bringing it up and wants me to apologize. In case our jobs are relevant, I'm a secretary and he's a police officer. And on this one, the community has decided that OP, of course, is not the a-hole. So now let's go take a look at the community comments to further understand their judgment. Dr. Beurologist says, not the a-hole, but geez, how did you get to this point? What was the financial discussion like before marriage? I mean, if this isn't resolved somehow, the marriage will fall apart. Webby Fanderquack says, everybody sucks here. Firstly, you should have discussed this before you got married. Secondly, if you're already arguing over the cost of a meal 4 months in, you have problems that need solving pretty urgently. I was with you until you left him at the restaurant with no means to pay. That was a really petty way to win an argument, and it puts you both in the a-hole basket. 4 months ago, you people vowed to love each other, and you need to do it. Bearman Cartoons says, completely not the a-hole. Sadly, most couples wait until after marriage to discuss finances. What happens when one of you starts earning more than the other? What happens when you have kids? Definitely, he needs therapy to understand how and why he needs to spend every dollar he earns, as well as you both need financial planning. Potentially, the best response is that each of you has to put in X percentage of your salary to a joint account that covers rent, utilities, emergency fund, and other household expenses, groceries, etc. Anything left he can spend as he wishes without question from you, and you the same. OP responds, yes, he misunderstood how a joint account works. He does help, but the issue is that he thinks that he gets to act like the joint account is his, but we have responsibilities and things to pay for. Well, I was gonna say absolutely not the a-hole, but now to me it's a very thin line between not the a-hole and everybody sucks, particularly because of the comments from Webby Fanderquack where she says that leaving the husband there to pay for himself was kinda petty, which it was, but I still thought it was deserved, so for me it's still not the a-hole, although maybe a little bit sucky. Anyway, like some of the commenters said, this is something that should have been discussed before getting married. The way you describe your husband's reaction is like a kid, you know, he gets his allowance and just goes and buys everything he can without thinking about what he needs to do later, or what responsibilities he has. Now, the fact that he spent all his money and assumed that you would pay for him is very selfish on his part, and that's not something that you should bring into a relationship. That's something he should work on. All in all, OP, I agree absolutely with the first commenter that said if this is not resolved, that marriage will fall apart. So hopefully you guys can work that out properly and in a way that it works for the both of you. What do you guys think about this thing? Let me know in the comment section, and once again we've reached that moment at the end of the video where I ask you to please click a like if you did like this video. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and help this community keep growing. Additionally, if you want to further engage with the community, don't forget about our Discord server. There's a link in the description. You just need to join in and you can chat with everybody there. And finally, once again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. It really means a lot to me that you guys like this content. And having said all that, I will see you guys in the next video.